Okay, so yesterday we had started Indo-Myanmar relation, and I told you we were discussing why Myanmar is important to us. Okay, so now let's look into the socio-political fabric of Myanmar. Now we all know that one of the most pressing issues in Myanmar is the Rohingya issue, that is the refugee problem. And therefore, we need to understand that what exactly is the society there in Myanmar. So, you know, Myanmar is quite a fabricated society. It's a divided society. भैया इसको जरा नीचे जैसे आप करते वैसे कर दें तो Okay, anyways, till that, right, Myanmar is a ethically divided or diverse country, right? Now, just as we have seen the situation in Sri Lanka, that it was ethically divided and there was this Sinhalese community which was in majority. Similar is the case in Myanmar. भैया ये होगा कहीं तो वापस ऐसे ही आ गया ना हाँ Okay, so here in Myanmar we have the dominant Burma community, right? चलो कोई नहीं हाँ तब तक मैं ये करती हूँ सी सो म्यांमार इज अ डाइवर्स कंट्री 2/3 of the population is the ethnic Burmans, which they call as Burmar. Keep writing, don't waste time. So 2/3 of the population is ethnic Burmans, which are called Burmars, B-A-R-M-A-R. Sorry, B-A-M-A-R, Burmar. There is nothing to explain. Abhi, I'll come to the explanation. These are just few things. हाँ जी. तो आप पूछो if you have some doubt. This is the first thing I ask. Do you have any doubt? हाँ जी. See, let me tell you one thing. There is, of course, you know, within some particular timeline, of course, we need to, because the more topics we will be able to then complete, right? So, of course, we can, whenever we are going for some kind of question, suppose. So, then we can have this kind of this thing, you can give your own inputs. Okay. चलो आज का lecture देखें. You will find it fine. You will get it. Okay. So, as I was saying that 2/3 of the population is ethnic Burmans. These are also called Burmar, right? 2/3 of the population. And no need to write these minority group names. You just have to remember that there is one minority called Rohingyas there. Okay. And one more thing to remember, that where does Rohingya reside? So this is the Rakhine area of Myanmar where Rohingyas basically reside. This is basically the northwestern part of Myanmar. So this is the most problematic area where Rohingyas reside, right? Apart from that, there are other communities also, Anglo-Indian, overseas Chinese, overseas Indians. Basically, entire Myanmar is divided into 14 regions. No need to remember it. So the most important region is Rakhine. The most important ethnic minority is Rohingya. That's it. Okay? But of course, the 2/3 population is ethnic Burmans. One more thing, the minorities there don't prefer to call them as ethnic minorities, right? They say that we don't wish to call ourselves as ethnic minority, rather they say that we are ethnic nationalities. So they prefer to call them as ethnic nationality rather than ethnic minority. Reason is they don't wish to get that label of minority. Reason because, let me complete, there is a continuous or consistent danger of Burmanization. You remember, there is Sinhalization because of which Tamilians were afraid of. So there is a danger of Burmanization because of which these minorities are always in fear. They prefer calling them ethnic nationality because at least in the nomenclature, nationality or nationhood is attached to them. Right? So this is just nomenclature they wish to refer, that we are ethnic nationality, don't call us ethnic minority. Because no doubt there is going to be some kind of discrimination. And that's what happened with Rohingyas also. However, as far as Rohingyas issue is concerned, the issue is not only about originality, because Myanmar thinks that these people were never their original inhabitants. They have come up from Bangladesh. That is an issue, right? See, Abhi, I'll tell you the difference. What is the problem of Rohingyas is that they are not being granted even citizenship. And they had been denied citizenship because it has been said that within a particular time frame, that also I'll let you know, they have not migrated before that, right? So this is the reason that other minority groups are at least being given the position of a citizen. But Rohingyas are being systematically secluded in that regard as well. Okay. Next is, let's look into, first of all, the troubled history of Myanmar. It's just for reference, right? Just back of your mind, you should understand that what exactly happened so far in Myanmar. So on 1st April 1937, at that time it was called Burma. It became the colony of Britain. Okay. Then independence, it got independence in year 1948. It became an independent republic. From 1962, actually, the problem started with military rule started up. So from 62, many of the non-Burman ethnic group also, they started pushing up for federalism. The non-Burman group, people who were not in majority, they started saying, bhai, we need to have a federal order. The same thing as the Tamils were making a claim in Sri Lanka. Similar was the case here also. Many minorities started claiming up that we want a federal order in the country. We want autonomy, right? See, many, during this time, many of the ethnic minority groups, they started asking for a federal order, for autonomy. It was between this time. So huge amount of demand was being made for this. Federalism means that some amount of powers will also be devolved to different states or provinces. Now, suppose in the Rakhine area, since Rohingyas were mostly being settled, so if the Rakhine state is also being given an, recognition of a status within a federal unit, so it also becomes one of the federal unit. So from Rakhine state also you will have the representative in the center. You are getting the point? This means that Rohingya community will also get represented. So similar was the case with other minorities also. That is why, why in India we have the two houses. Why Rajya Sabha is there? Because Rajya Sabha gives the state representation. It is not the people's representation. It is state representation. That is region wise also you are getting yourself represented. Right? So this is the beauty of federal order. You're getting the point? So people who are staying in different areas also, they can also get their representation. And that's what they were demanding. Because many times minorities get ghettoized to one particular area. So if you make that particular area part of federal unit, that area will also get represented. So will the communities which are staying there. Clear? Okay. In year 1997, Myanmar got admitted into ASEAN. Now, ASEAN is very important as far as Myanmar is concerned. We'll go into the Asian consensus also. So, ASEAN is one group in which Myanmar is one of the very important country. And amidst all this crisis, be it the toppling of the democratic government or be it the refugee issue, in both the issues, a world is looking upon ASEAN to come out with some very nice solution. Right? So, ASEAN therefore becomes very important when we talk about Myanmar. 2007, there was massive increase in price of fuel. This is just for reference. A kind of saffron revolution was started. Saffron, why? It was being spearheaded by Buddhist monk. That is why it was called saffron revolution. And excessive government oppression was being made and this movement also got subdued. So all these references shows that what kind of political tension was existing during that time. There were numerous civil wars also. Civil wars means civil unrest. So there was continuous problem in Myanmar as far as the majority are concerned and as far as the minorities are concerned. So it was completely civil unrest as well as political unrest. Both the things were moving simultaneously, right? And it was a time, of course, when military rule was there. Democracy was not there. Next came the era of liberalization. This was the period of liberalization. This started from 2011 to 2021. So in 2010, a general election was being conducted. Now you see in Myanmar, there are basically two important parties you have to remember. One is the USDP, that is Union Solidarity and Development Party. This is a militia-backed or military-backed party. Anji.
So, like, what you're saying, we get it, there's no doubt. But we can't register it.
See, this is something which I really need to talk to now. Reason because, reason forget it. I'll try to resolve this. See, there are certain things. I'll try to resolve it. Fine. Okay. Chalo. Acha, just listen pehle. So in Myanmar there are two basically important parties, and power keeps conflicting or shifting between these two. So one is the military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party. And another is the National League of Democracy, NLD. So you just have to remember these two terms. This is led by Aung San Suu Kyi. So what happened that in 2010 a general election was made and USDP, that is military-backed party, was declared the winner. And Thein Sein was made the president. Right? For 2 years, this means the military rule was there. 2012 by-election started. in few constituencies, in few areas. In this by-election now, Aung San Suu Kyi party won few of the seats. Now from here the actually conflict started. You know, during this time in 2012 also, the world also thought that might be a possibility that democracy might return. So it has been said that this was the first time when international representatives were also present in Myanmar to see how the voting keeps on going. Okay. So this was quite a, I mean, Myanmar has one huge international reputation between this time, when for the first time Aung San Suu Kyi party won. So good amount of international reputation it got. Okay. Then the story actually starts from year 2015. So 2012 it was just by-election. In 2015 it was a proper general election which was supposed to take place. So of course in this election, National League for Democracy came out with absolute majority. Now when it came out with absolute majority, and during this time Aung San Suu Kyi was constitutionally being banned from getting into a post of president. So she can't be president. It was this kind of ban was being imposed on her. Aung San Suu Kyi was constitutionally banned or barred from the post of presidency. This was being done because, of course, she was one of the symbol of democracy. So the prior militia, on account of several reasons, have barred her that you will never be into the position of being a president. The story goes further also, how she came back. That is another story. So 2015, NLD got absolute majority in both the chambers of National Parliament. However, Aung San Suu Kyi was constitutionally barred. Then we'll move forward. Just on 45 available seats, elections took place. By-elections are what? These are those elections, suppose the representative have died, right? Or the term has ended, whatever. So these are not the general election throughout the country. They are on just few specific seats. Her leaders from that party, they might have got the post of representatives, MLAs, MPs, they might have got this. But she was barred from getting the post of president, right? She can't be president. That bar was being constitutionally imposed on her. The previous militia, see, you can't say USDP because USDP, I said it is militia-backed party, right? General militia, the military, they are also called military junta. So that party is being backed by military. But many times, whenever this party won election, it was the general of the military who used to become the president. So you see, in front of everyone, it was a proper party, but a proper backing by the militia or military generals, it was being given to this party. So whenever they won election, actually the general of the military, he used to become the president, right? But election was being fought by this party only. Okay. Now moving forward. Now what happened? In this election, this party won. And of course, USDP protested. So in 2016, Hiten Koay was elected as the first non-military president. I told you, na? Till now only military generals were being given this position of presidentship. So Hiten Koay became the first non-military president. And you see, since Aung San Suu Kyi was being barred from becoming president, a special post was created, that of a state councillor. A special post of state councillor was created, and this post was akin to prime minister. State councillor. When this post is akin to prime minister, this means she became the de facto ruler. And this is how Aung San Suu Kyi entered into the mainstream politics. So she became the state councillor. Clear? Then came 2020 elections. So this was 2016 election. She didn't become the president, she became somehow the de facto ruler. 4 years she remained in this position. So everyone was very optimistic about Myanmar now. That democracy has come up again. In 2020, 4 years after, again there were general elections. So again, Aung San Suu Kyi party won the election. Okay. And it was a landslide victory. So USDP came forward and said that no, there are huge amount of election irregularities which has come up to our mind, and it has come up to our account. However, at that time, election observers were being called upon. So this became a huge issue in Myanmar politics. That some amount of tampering, some amount of irregularities have been made by NLD. However, election observers declared that there was no major irregularity and election results should not to be cancelled. So they said that no, there is no problem with the present election. Okay. So in January 2021, just before the new parliament was going to start its session, NLD declared that Aung San Suu Kyi now would be the state councillor and prime minister would be Win Myint. Okay. नहीं हो रहा है. Okay, so Aung San Suu Kyi, it was being declared that she'll be the state councillor and now Win Myint will become the president. However, things changed on 1st February 2021 when Tet Daw is another name for the military junta in Myanmar. So Tet Daw, they detained Aung San Suu Kyi. The president was put under house arrest, and therein started again the entire era of military rule in Myanmar. Right now it's under military rule. When NLD won, and after that they have barred that she cannot become the president. And even that party, when it was in ruling, they have created the post of state council for the same. See, that was an easy option. No, that was constitutionally barred. So the moment when she was supposed to, confer power to the NLD, at that time the constitutional status was saying that you can't become president. So immediately, though, you can't change the constitution, no? You have just assumed the power. So what she did was, she said, okay, fine. We can make another post, like we have the deputy prime minister post came up in India. Remember? So whenever there is this kind of things, a new thing comes up. So that deputy prime minister is also not something which is there in the constitution. It's just for, it could have, you are saying, no. But then when she was already enjoying the status of state councillor, I didn't get you. Distribution of power. No, so right now, so it's entirely military. See, that was when the by-election came up and some seats were being given to NLD. When by-election came up, of course, that was distribution of power only, no? Few seats NLD also got. During that time. See, the thing is that times what happens, suppose you are in a party and there are two important party faces, but you have to carry forward this party. So one person definitely wants even to get into the power. So it's better to give him the de jure status and you enjoy the de facto status. So Aung San Suu Kyi actually wanted to be the string puller, or you can say the mastermind behind everything. So she didn't want it to come up, and also there might be some political compulsion wherein she wanted to appease few of the leaders of her own party. That is the reason presidentship she never took up. But then the de facto thing was already in her hand, right? So at times it happened, no? When there are 2-3 important faces in your party, you have to appease everyone. So you can confer some kind of de jure or non-important post to them. Not exactly non-important, but of course not that powerful post to them. So Aung San Suu Kyi was the state councillor. Anyways, so now this coup happened. So the story, or according to your answer, now the things have to start. That what was exactly the global reaction? When the short-term history of democracy again came to an end in Myanmar. Thank you, Priya. What was the global reaction now? You know, on the very second day of the protest, of course, in Myanmar, thousands of protesters came out into street. Because as I said that, before that, there was quite a optimism within the people also that yes, democracy has now come up. Might be in the future some amount of autonomy or some amount of federal arrangement would also be given to other communities. But now when military rule came up, and it was very harsh, earlier also history has shown that military rule was always very harsh. So of course people also in Myanmar, they resisted. If I talk about who all condemned, so first of all, the first condemnation came up from the side of UN. So UN General Secretary, they condemned it. Apart from them, US, Western European political leaders and Southeast Asian countries, they all condemned this act. What these countries demanded? These countries say that you have to release all the captive leaders. And second, they made an appeal that democratic rule had to be restored. Okay. So this amount of global condemnation was being made by these countries. So almost all the European countries, US, UN, Southeast Asian democracy, they came up saying that either that of course you have to release all the captive leaders and then democratic rule has to be restored. US also said and they threatened that sanctions would be posed. And it said that $1 billion asset of Myanmar leaders would be freezed. Right? What was the reason behind military rule? Loopholes क्या थे? See, as I said that day also, whenever you doesn't have a very vibrant civil society, instances of coup takes place, right? So Myanmar is one society which is A, very much fragmented, B, there is absence of this vibrant civil society. C, the military rule always have a tradition of being there in the power. So it is very difficult to uproot them in a few years. So they have a long history of ruling there. Another very important thing is one of the major political parties entirely backed by military. So suppose you in a country, there are two important parties in which one party is completely backed by military. It has a long history of being ruling and coming up into power. Leaders, of course, are corrupt, high-handed. And then there is another party which is just budding up. Leader has been under house arrest for so long. Don't have that much of financial capabilities also in their hand. So, of course, there is a propensity that the more powerful party will try to again come up into power. Right? So, the issue actually is that democracy was always very weak there. That was the reason, again, this kind of thing happened. And therefore, at the underlying, the underlying solution could be that citizens have to be very vibrant. Until and unless they come out with open this thing that we definitely don't want this kind of system to set up, these things will not change. This loop will not end. Okay. Now, who all refrained to criticize? You can find India. Yeah, the asset of $1 million was being freezed of all the military leaders. They must have kept their asset in US bank. So US said that, okay, fine, we are going to freeze your accounts there. Now, which all countries refrained to criticize? They never supported, but they refrained. So it was, of course, India. India was there, so Pakistan, of course, has to be there. China was, of course, there. Russia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Philippines. The most important among them is India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Russia, and China. These are the countries who anyways wants to maintain their relations. And from here we'll understand that what was the sea change in India's policy towards Myanmar. Right? Likh lo. In fact, it has been said that Russian and Chinese representative, before the coup, they have gone to meet the military chief there. So just few days before the coup, there was this meeting between Russia, China, and the militia there. And after that, the coup happened. However, when a resolution in UN was being passed, later on I'll let you know that a resolution was also passed by UN. However, UN is completely hopeless in this case also, and in Rohingya case also you will find UN not at all being relevant. So, you know, when this kind of resolution was being passed, that immediately you have to release Aung San Suu Kyi, UN passed this resolution. Russia and China refrained from blocking that resolution. So they were playing this dual game. You're getting my point. Before that, they had a meeting with the militia. After that coup happened, they refrained to criticize it. But in the UN, when the resolution was being passed, that you have to immediately release all the democratic leaders, at that time, they didn't block this resolution. Okay, this is the policy which even India has adopted either in the Rohingya case or also in this case. For India, the reasons are, as I said, there are certain specific concerns which India is sharing with Myanmar. Okay, so those concerns now we'll see, and how the policy has taken a complete change. Earlier, what was the instance when earlier the coup happened, how Rajiv Gandhi government responded, and now how the present government responded. So India's stand on military coup, a question of course can come on this. So first of all, India has proclaimed a policy shift. India has itself said that yes, we have made a policy shift as far as our engagement with the current Myanmarese regime is concerned. In 1989, actually, what happened? Okay. In 1989, you know, when again democracy was de-established or removed from Myanmar, at that time, India took a very bold step, and India supported the pro-democracy movement. Okay, this was in year 1989. They took a very strong step. They criticized that democracy has been demolished from Myanmar. At that time, Narasimha Rao, who was the External Affairs Minister, he even said that India would give financial assistance to the pro-democracy movement. So this was during Rajiv Gandhi regime. Narasimha Rao was the External Affairs Minister. Right? In fact, it is being said that Rajiv Gandhi even made a visit to Myanmar, strongly condemning that this India is not going to take. And Narasimha Rao even said, we are going to finance the pro-democracy movement there. So this was the strong stand at that time. However, in December 22, 2021, last year, we saw that Indian Foreign Secretary visited Myanmar. I told you the context, no? Harshvardhan Shringla. You know, the coup was in January 2021 last year. Almost after 11 months, from Indian side, someone went to Myanmar. So when our foreign secretary went there, it became a big news that why he has gone there. What is the purpose? When India has refrained to criticize, it has not at all commented on the military coup this time. No, chalo, theek hai, you have not commented, it's okay. But now you have went there to meet him also. At which capacity? You are in a government capacity. So if you are going to meet someone, this means you are giving some amount of recognition. Then too, when you are a democratic country, this became a big issue. So in December 22, 2021, our foreign secretary made a visit. One, this point. Another, during Quad Summit, in the context, therefore, I said that is very important. During the Quad Summit also, our foreign minister said, we are not going to impose any national sanctions on Myanmar. No national sanctions. We said that imposing sanction is an approach of West. This is not our approach. You go before the notes, you will find it is written that they said we have certain national and specific concern, and someone with whom we have these kind of concern, we don't believe in imposing national sanctions. So these are the two events through which India has given a signal of the growing rapprochement even towards the Myanmari junta. And therefore, we can say that it is totally a policy shift in Indian stand. Clear? Apart from that, India has also supported ASEAN 5-point consensus. पहले इतना लिखो, फिर 5-point consensus बता, right? Now, I told you that ASEAN is very important as far as Myanmar is concerned, right? So, another stand of India is that India supports ASEAN 5-point consensus. So, now when this problem came up, and even before also, when in Myanmar there was this hide and seek going on with democracy, ASEAN was very prompt in getting into some kind of solution. So ASEAN came out with this 5-point consensus. Most important point within this 5-point consensus is, first of all, violence needs to be stopped. Cessation of violence. Because violence amounts to human right violation. And this, no multilateral organization formally can support. So they said, first of all, immediate cessation of violence. Second, they said, all parties have to exercise restraint. Right? Have to exercise some amount of restraint. All the parties there. In Myanmar, yeah. Primarily, of course, two parties, USDP and NLD. You need to exercise restraint. And third, a constructive dialogue has to be made within all the parties concerned. This means ASEAN was for a peaceful solution to this problem. It calls for a peaceful solution to this problem. So in Quad meeting, when again this Myanmar issue was being taken into account, why? Why in Quad meeting? because Myanmar is a very important part. Yesterday I told you in the Indo-Pacific region. Quad is a very important organization for Indo-Pacific region. Of course, when there is some disturbances in Myanmar, of course, when there is a open information and open information coming out that there is a collusion between Chinese government and the military junta. We have a record of how Chinese and Russian head of the states and official capacity, they have went before and met this military junta. So of course the Quad members are very much suspicious, right? Therefore Myanmar issue was being discussed there. So there also India said that no national sanction, and plus we are supporting an ASEAN 5-point consensus. Now you must be wondering why India is not saying that we will come and interfere. Reason, because India always believed that Myanmar, this issue is internal to Myanmar. Similar is India's approach towards the refugee issue. Because somewhere down the line, even India has always said that Kashmir issue or other issues are internal to India. We don't want to internationalize them. So the same approach they are following. Right? See, the context was very much different. As I said yesterday, किसने पूछा था? Sri Lanka mein our concerns were regarding the Tamilians who were having some kind of contact with our own Tamilian people in Tamil Nadu. A kind of information regarding separatist tendency, all Tamilian country, Tamil alum they wanted to create, which included all Tamilian population of both India as well as Sri Lanka. Therefore, at that time, the concern was more about India's integrity. Therefore, anyways, we had to go and, interfere there. However, in Myanmar, in Bangladesh also the same thing was there. We were directly affected. But as far as Myanmar is concerned, we consider this issue to be internal. And B, we don't want at this moment to take the animosity of the present military junta which is there in Myanmar. Reason, because China is like a hawk there after all our neighbors. So we don't want to create that vacuum which China can occupy. Right? So the situations are very different from what they were in 1971 in case of Bangladesh and in 90s in case of Sri Lanka. Now the situation is very much different. That is why we are saying why we are not going to interfere directly, and we are going through a proper institutionalized channel, that is ASEAN. You can go for that, and there is a 5-point consensus and we must respect this. So this is going to be India's stand. Now next we'll find out why a policy shift. You have not written? So write in earlier in 1989, just write. India took a stand against 1989. India took a stand against disestablishment of democracy, in Myanmar. हाँ जी.
The military rule.
Again, a military rule came up. Sporadically, it was coming up. One leader was going, another leader was coming up. They were not letting democracy to propel there. Democracy came actually when I said it was this period of liberalization when actually democracy come up. So before then, yeah, it was completely a military rule. In between, sporadically, when democracy even came up or they wanted to come up, the NLD, and Aung San Suu Kyi was very, very vibrant leader at that time. She was under house arrest for so long. So her party, of course, was coming up. Sporadically they were coming up, but they were not allowed to come up. So 1987, of course, Rajiv Gandhi was there. See, at that time, Rajiv Gandhi was very active as far as the neighbors were concerned. If you remember, it was the same time when he even interfered in the Sri Lankan affairs. So, of course, that was a time when he even interfered in the Myanmarese affair, right? So, the timeline was also very apt that he was very much active as far as foreign policy is concerned. Okay, the Look East policy also became Act East, up to it has become Act East. The Look East policy also became very important at that time. So, therefore, they started interfering more into their affairs, right? Now, right, Narasimha Rao, the then External Affairs Minister, even said that Indian government would provide financial assistance to Myanmar's democracy movement. However, this time, on 22nd December 2021, last year, 22nd December 2021, Indian Foreign Secretary visited Myanmar. Also during Quad Summit, in February 2022, India did not supported the idea of national sanctions on Myanmar. India supported ASEAN 5 consensus. Most important point among ASEAN 5 consensus is utmost restraint by all the political parties, immediate cessation of violence, and constructive dialogue, so that a peaceful solution can come up for this problem, right? Immediate cessation of violence, utmost restraint by all political parties, constructive dialogue between all stakeholders or political parties. Now coming to the analysis part, that what exactly is this Indian approach? You know, for some, is India's approach towards the legitimization of coup? Can we say that this kind of approach, this kind of rapprochement is a legitimization of coup? Now you see why this thing came up only. So there are several reasons. First of all was the foreign secretary visit to Myanmar post-coup. And actually, after coup, India was the third country after China and Thailand who had made the visit to the military head in Myanmar. Okay. So apart from India, only China and Thailand had so far made a visit. So therefore, Indian visit is considered to be bit a policy change. That's why India went. So the very fact that India in a government capacity, Indian foreign secretary went there, we can say that yes, some amount of tacit recognition was being given to the military junta by India. It is argued that some amount of tacit recognition is being given. Right? Next point. Terms used in Ministry of External Affairs press release. You know, when this kind of visits come up, so press release comes up, summing up the entire meet. So in this press release, certain terms were being used. These terms were not the typo error. That typo error never happens. This was a deliberate attempt to include these terms into our press release. This also shows that yes, to some extent, India is going for this kind of recognition. So what all terms were being used? Chairman. Terms like chairman, State Administration Council, right? Terms like chairman was used, State Administration Council was used to refer to Myanmar's commander-in-chief or military. Myanmar's military commander-in-chief or the president or the head of the military, the general. So when India in its press release is saying chairman, State Administration Council, this means that some amount of recognition it is using. It is not saying general. It is not saying, commander-in-chief. Something like those terms are not being used. So in a very deliberate attempt was made to use these terms. So now when these terms were used, it was said that not just the coup leaders, but also the entire coup administration is being given validity. The entire administration is being given the validity. You can write. Some analyst opines that, in the second point you can write, some analyst opines that by using terms like, some analyst opines that by using terms like chairman, State Administration Council, quote unquote, to refer to Myanmar's military's commander-in-chief, comma, New Delhi appears to be reaffirming not just the coup leader, but also not just the coup leader, but also the coup regime's overall administrative validity. Right? Now the third point is even more surprising. It was not that after the coup, India has shed off all its cooperation. No. India was continuing to give military cooperation. There was continuous economic linkage and also developmental project. Why so? All these things also illustrate that yes, Indian government to some extent wanted to maintain their contact, their correspondence with the Myanmarese political administration, be it the military junta, right? So in the third point, continued military cooperation right. There has been sale of military hardware. There has been sale of military hardware, of course from Indian side, to Myanmar. In the same point, right? Bharat Electronics Limited, BEL, Bharat Electronics Limited, this is India's defense manufacturer. It has exported radar technology. It has exported radar technology. And not only this, not only radar technology it has exported, remote controlled weapon system. So two things India has exported. One is the radar technology and other is the remote controlled weapon system, and of course to the Myanmarese military. Okay. So now when India is doing so, this also means that the military cooperation is also continuing. Apart from that, India has also participated, right? Third point in the same, third sub point. Apart from that, India has also participated in the 12th Asian Defense Minister Meet. Twelfth Asian Defense Minister Meet. And irony is that this meet was on countering terrorism. Okay? This meet was on countering terrorism and it was represented by the military junta. And India also participated. You're getting my point? So the irony is that that military which was routinely engaged in terror activities, it is even taking part in Asian Defense Minister Meet, and India is also taking part. So these are certain instances which show that yes, there has been a change in our policy towards Myanmar. Clear? These 3 points in military engagement. Next is continued economic linkages. Continued economic linkages. There is an India-Myanmar Chamber of Commerce. India-Myanmar Chamber of Commerce. And through this Chamber of Commerce, economic cooperation was being provided. Number 1 point. Through India-Myanmar Chamber of Commerce, economic cooperation was being made between these two countries throughout this period of coup, all through last year. through India-Myanmar Chamber of Commerce, economic cooperation has been made between the two countries. When our foreign secretary went to meet Myanmar last year in December, he inaugurated an Indian center. An India center was being inaugurated, and that was in the Yangon province. Now, this India center would be a business hub. It is said that the purpose of this India center is to create a business hub. All kind of interactions, collaborations, business meet between the two countries can take place in this India center. Now, the very fact that during the military coup, this kind of center is being inaugurated, this speaks volume about our change in approach, right? So forget about national sanctions. That too we have made very clear. We have opened an India center there to go ahead with business meets, to make it a business hub, right? And imagine at that time, 1989, India has said that we are going to finance the pro-democratic movement also, if required. Okay? So this is, and you are, see, that day you were asking, no, that what exactly, how this Tamilian, someone even after that also asked me. I said these things should not be said in on record in that ways. But you know, it was that time when India had supported financially, logistically, many of the pro-democratic movements in its neighbors. So when India saw that there is this Tamilian problem happening in Sri Lanka, and when they saw that there might be possibility that huge amount of refugees might come to our place, of course, India, not openly, but secretly, definitely provided them logistic and financial assistance through our secret agencies, right? But things took a different turn because we wanted to make those Tamilians resettle there only in their own land. We thought we may go for a democratic movement and their demands would be met by Sri Lankan government. But we got bewildered with the idea of a Tamil alum that come on from Tamil Nadu also we want to go there. Now when this thing came up, then Indian policy makers took a different stand. Then they sent their peacekeeping operations, you know. So it was this Rajiv Gandhi time he was there. During Sri Lanka also, he went there and intervened. Here in Myanmar also, he wanted to financially, logistically give support to the democratic, pro-democratic movement. But today now so much the approach has changed. Just look at this. Okay. Next is development projects. When Foreign Secretary went for a meet there, he handed 1 million dose of COVID vaccine. $1 million of COVID vaccines. India also said that 10,000 tons of wheat and rice would be given. Right? So two things you need to remember. First of all, during Foreign Secretary meet, over 1 million doses of made in India COVID vaccine was given to them. 1 million. And apart from that, 10,000 tons of wheat and rice we said we'll be giving to Myanmar. Apart from that, our Foreign Secretary also said that we are going to be very positive and expedite the connectivity project. What is the connectivity project? Kaladan Multimodal Transit Project. So the third point in development, you will write this. Kaladan Multimodal Transit Project. Okay, Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. So India expressed that yes, we wish to carry forward the developmental project as far as connectivity is concerned, and we are very optimistic to carry forward this project. Later on, I'll tell you that actually this is also one reason why India is not so much interfering into Myanmar's affair, because lot amount of its economic stakes are there in this Kaladan multimodal transport project. It want it to get conceptualized, right? So these were certain instances which show that India is showing a rapprochement towards Myanmar. Clear? So now what term can we use for this approach? So the term which is used is the twin track approach, right? India's twin track approach towards Myanmar. What is this twin track approach? That is, we will proceed on two tracks. One would be carrying on diplomatic engagement with Myanmar's military junta, right? So there are two goals as far as this engagement is concerned with Myanmar. There is an explicit goal and there is an implicit goal, right? So the explicit goal is to ensure security in Northeast India. This is the explicit goal, to ensure security in Northeast India. Security here includes not only border security, which includes insurgency, terrorism. It also involves drug trafficking, human trafficking, smuggling, illegal migration, these are our explicit security concerns. Reason is, yesterday I said that Myanmar is the only Southeast Asian country which shares a border with India. So these are the explicit concern. What is the implicit concern? And that concern actually is more important. So implicit concern is to stand as a counterweight to China. So implicit concern is to stand as a counterweight to China's growing clout in that region. To counterweight China's growing clout in that region. To counterweight China's growing hegemony in that region. We don't want to leave any space for China to come up. That is why we are saying that, okay, fine, we'll supply you military hardware. We'll supply you vaccine, you don't go there. We'll establish an Indian center, no need for making a business hub with them, right? We'll give you radar technology. We'll provide you remote controlled military wares. No need to go anywhere. We will provide you everything. This is our approach. Because if China becomes, prominent, then these security concerns, the explicit concerns will become more grave, right? So this is the first thing, that carrying on diplomatic engagement with Myanmar's military junta. And second twin track approach is, the second approach is at the same time pushing for countries' return to democracy, right? It's not that we have completely abandoned our democratic stand. We are, of course, there for democracy there. We wish that democracy gets restored. Of course, Aung San Suu Kyi had a very good relations with India also personally. She had studied here only. So, of course, that kind of connection would be great if again democracy get restored. But at present, we want to have engagement with any establishment, whosoever is there in Myanmar, even if it is a military junta, right? In fact, when Harshvardhan Shringla went there, met the military junta chief, the military assured India that, of course, in future we can go for some kind of elections, right? So India urged them that when can democracy get restored? They said very soon we can come up with some kind of plan. So what the military general proposed, that we might have election very soon. This is something which they told us, election very soon. And not only this, they also assured that might be in 2023 election might come up. This was something, some kind of assurance they gave us. And they also said that they are considering to introduce proportional representation there. Yes. See, military junta will come again into power through this party, USDP. But at least that would be some kind of democracy. So through democracy, the kingmakers, of course, will be there only. Their head will automatically become the president. But at least that would be through a election process. Even though everyone will knew that this is going to be a, one-sided affair. Opponents, of course, would not be there. When the head of the opponent party is under arrest, the present prime minister, so-called, was under arrest, who will come and contest for the election? But still they are saying that some kind of election we will make 2023. They are even saying that we have a plan of introducing proportional representation. And when they said that we have a plan of introducing proportional representation, India suggested that any kind of system should be introduced which would be acceptable to the people. So you should go forward with any kind of electoral system provided that is acceptable to the people. So to this extent also talks were held. It is not that our foreign secretary didn't talk about democracy. So we did said that democracy needs to be restored. In fact, it has been said that Foreign Secretary even urged the military junta to arrange a meeting with Aung San Suu Kyi, but that request was being declined. Right? एक लाइन लिखो. This dual track policy approach. After this, right? This dual track policy approach. Dual track, DUAL, dual track policy approach is in sharp contrast to India's Western, quote unquote में, like-minded, India's Western, quote unquote में लिखो, like-minded, strategic partners approach. Okay, so this is completely different from the approach with our Western strategic partners are having towards Myanmar. So they are for a more direct action, national sanctions, right? Complete boycott, but we are not for that. Reasons for the inverted India's approach to Myanmar. What are the reasons? So the reason number one is, of course, growing influence of China in Myanmar. In this regard, say, China has gifted a second hand Ming class diesel electric submarine. China has gifted to Myanmar a second hand Ming class diesel electric submarine. When? December 2021. Quite a recent engagement. Apart from that, what else China has given? C-802 anti-ship missile. Right? Number 3, China is also engaging in China-Myanmar economic corridor. This already I told you is important part of BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. China-Myanmar economic corridor. This is important part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is also very important part of China's infrastructure diplomacy. This is called China's infrastructural diplomacy. Belt and Road Initiative. So this is the concern with India. China is doing these things, giving them not only military support but also connectivity support. We also are planning Kaladhar multimodal transit project. So we doesn't want to halt that project in any ways, right? So therefore, this is the first reason why we have changed our approach. Second is security apprehension across border. (1,700 km) border we share with Myanmar. And then write all the points which I told before in security, right? Illegal migrant, drug trafficking, human trafficking, smuggling, infiltration, insurgency, narcotic trade. Narcotic trade is another very great problem. Reason because Myanmar is the second largest producer of opium in the world. Therefore falls in the golden triangle. So that is again a very important concern for India. Therefore, we don't want to shed out our engagement with any military regime, even if military regime with Myanmar. Third, Act East policy. So, of course, Myanmar is a very important actor of Act East policy. It could be considered as a gateway to Southeast Asian countries, India's gateway. Because out of all Southeast Asian countries, it is the only country sharing border with India. So if you wish to have a connectivity also with Southeast Asian countries, you have to go through Myanmar. Therefore, we wish to have a good relations with Myanmar. Third is neighborhood first policy. This is the signature dream policy of the present regime. Last is the Kaladan multimodal project. This is almost $484 million worth project. So this is a big time project. We don't want to lose it anyways. These are certain reasons why India is manifesting a change. Kaladan multimodal project, India has economic stakes as far as this project is concerned. This project worth is almost $484 million. Done. What is all about this policy is that number one, it would be a litmus test for Indo-Bangladesh relations. Now you will say why? Reason comes up because of the Rohingya issue. So what happened? Next we'll study that only. When this Rohingya issue came up, millions of Rohingyas had migrated illegally to Bangladesh, right? And you see, Bangladesh was expecting India to condemn this. India refrained again, condemning this. Because Rohingya was something which could be a problem for India. And we have many Rohingyas coming up in India as well, right? So, of course, our demography could have been under danger. So, we didn't condemn that much. So, right, litmus test for Indo-Bangladesh relation. Given that there are more than 1 million Rohingya refugees. 1 million Rohingya refugees from Myanmar languishing in Bangladesh, bilateral overreach to Myanmar by any country automatically brings Bangladesh stakes into the relational calculus. Bangladesh stake into the relational calculus. So our relational stake with Bangladesh can come to a stake if we start engaging with the military junta, and plus we are not addressing Rohingya issue with them. So of course that would be a litmus test for Indo-Bangladesh relation. To what extent Bangladesh would not react? Now this is the time to see. Number 2, India walks tightrope on Myanmar.
India alone, refugees.
India, yes. We have so many refugees coming up in India as well. Abhi, see, the problem is that we have lakhs of Rohingyas there. Recently, last year only, in Jammu, many of the Rohingyas were being detained. So, it was being said that these Rohingyas needs to be deported back. Abhi, I'll tell you. Let's come to that point. So at that time, Manipur High Court came out with a ruling that Article 21 is applicable to every person, be it an Indian citizen or even if an illegal migrant. So therefore, on that account, Indian Supreme Court said that we are not going to deport those people directly. Deportation, of course, would be made. We are not saying we are absorbing them. Definitely not. But it has to be through proper procedure. So these are the words which the Honorable High Court has said. Through proper procedure, deportation would be made. Proper procedure means, first of all, that particular country has to say that these are our nationalities, and then only we can deport them. Till then, they would be there in the jails only where they are at present. Okay? So there are many refugees, Rohingya refugees, which are still here. Therefore, this is going to be a major problem because India doesn't have a very fixed refugee policy. You will learn it next. India walks tightrope on Myanmar. What does that mean? There is a diplomatic tightrope, as I said, because any engagement with Myanmar would definitely bring us in loggerhead not only with Bangladesh, also with China. So India has to walk very cautiously, diplomatically. Third, the present approach is very pragmatic. Diplomatic tightropes is the same thing, that if we are making a kind of rapprochement with the present military junta without addressing Rohingya issues in a proper way, this means that we are not putting Bangladesh viewpoint on refugees in priority, right? So of course we are going to have some kind of tussle on this issue with Bangladesh. And if we are finding ourselves more closer to Myanmar, this means we are going to bear some amount of animosity with China as well. Because China also wants the same thing with Myanmar. So now we are in a very diplomatic tightrope. Very cautiously we have to move forward. Also, having this stature of being one of the largest democracy, what kind of image is India portraying abroad, that also comes into question, right? So this also we have to see. Therefore, our approach is twin track. We are not only engaging ourselves with the military But we are also saying that we are for a democratic establishment very soon. The reason is because we have to carry forward our image of being the largest democracy, right? So all these factors have to be keep into mind whenever we are going to engage with Myanmar now. So this is what diplomatic tightrope is. Okay. Third point, pragmatic approach. Likho, India's Myanmar policy has become more pragmatic now. Has become more pragmatic now. As it has to protect its own specific interest, quote unquote. Its own specific interests, quote unquote. Add one line. Bilaterally, आगे लिखो, bilaterally, it appears that India is likely to nudge or push. Bilaterally, it appears that India is likely to nudge or push gently, the military junta to accommodate the interests of its political opponents. Who are political opponents of military junta? The pro-democracy Aung San Suu Kyi party. You know, during this foreign secretary meet, it happened that our foreign secretary also met the other political parties who are there, including the Aung San Suu Kyi party. Leaders also he met. So this also signifies that India is saying that a strong opposition is also required. See, all these meetings which happen are not very casually. These meetings are very symbolic in nature. So the very fact that our foreign secretary not only met the head of the military junta but also its political opponent, this illustrates this fact that what India approach is to gently push the military junta to accommodate the interest of other people as well. This is going to be a pragmatic approach, getting engaged and then pushing them slowly. Next point. At the same time, India would also advise US and other Western countries to refrain from using sanctions against the military junta. These sanctions, if imposed, would push Myanmar if imposed, would push Myanmar in China's embrace, and could have a counterproductive effect. And could have a counterproductive impact or effect. Next point is, it is a test case for India-US understanding on Indo-Pacific. at this moment, India can't afford to isolate Myanmar of its own. Because if India isolates Myanmar, remember Myanmar is an important integral in Indo-Pacific. Moment you abandon that country, China will come and have a control, and through Myanmar, China can have a control over Indo-Pacific. So it can sabotage Myanmar to have a greater control of Indo-Pacific, and this is not what US also doesn't want, India also doesn't want, neither other Quad countries. So this is going to be a test case also for Indo-US understanding in Myanmar. So whatever India's approach is towards Myanmar, US definitely doesn't have a problem, right? So US approach is imposing sanctions because US is not sharing boundary or other concerns with Myanmar. But at the same time, US understands that India do have certain specific concern because of which it can't go for these kinds of sanctions or direct action. Therefore, what all India is doing, US in Quad meeting, if India is having this thing of saying that we are not imposing sanctions, this means some kind of implicit understanding is there between India and US that of course this is your concern and therefore it's fine if you are having this twin track approach towards Myanmar. Right? Write one line. Myanmar is a test case for India-US understanding on Indo-Pacific and an isolated Myanmar could help China. An isolated Myanmar could help China in sabotaging, capturing, sabotaging, sabotaging, sabotaging the idea of Indo-Pacific. Next is twin strategic goals. To have a complete control over entire Indo-Pacific and a good collaboration with all the countries. But that should be minus China. Anything minus China is going to be the major aim for Indo-US collaboration. Be it Indo-Pacific, be it the IOR region. Right? So India again is guided by two geostrategic goals. Of course, one is to contain China.
But India is including Indo-Pacific region, which includes China. But you are saying
हाँ बोलो क्या मैं सुना नहीं बताओ ठीक आफ्टर द क्लास कम एंड मीट मी देन ठीक है कोई डाउट है तो सो दे आर ट्विन geostrategic goals. One is of course containing China, another is having a regional supremacy. Lastly, we can say that there is a need for a very cautious approach. What is this cautious approach? This means to engage with all the stakeholders. To engage with all the stakeholders. At this point, the stakeholder is, of course, the military junta. But apart from that, the other political opponents in Myanmar as well. So the approach would be very cautious. Cautious means we need to include all the stakeholders in Myanmar politics so that a kind of consensus can come up. because we share the idea of Asian five consensus, right? They are also saying that some amount of restraint from all political parties have to be made, some amount of consensus building has to come up, that what should be the political future of Myanmar, right? So this is actually what exactly can come up as far as Myanmar, the military coup, India's stake, what are the implications. This is all which is required, right? Nothing outside it. I don't believe it will be sufficing all your questions which come up. We can come up with questions also later on. Next is the Rohingya issue. This is very interesting because this is a very multi-layered issue. So what happened in the Rohingya crisis somewhere started in 2012. It became more accelerated in year 2017. But now why we are mentioning it? Because in February 2022, United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Refugees, during a visit to Bangladesh, she discussed this Rohingya issue. Just few days before, this Rohingya issue was again discussed with Bangladesh. And it was said that their situation in Cox's Bazar, that I'll let you know what it is. Actually, this is an inhabited island. What Bangladesh has done, no? Because many Rohingyas are staying. So what they have said that there is an inhabited island. So they have deported all the Rohingyas in that island. So next we'll go with the concerns also, because that island is ecologically very fragile. It was actually uninhabited. No one used to live there. It is prone to volcano. But now because they don't have much land, their demography is changing. So what they have done is they have deported all the Rohingyas there. So the situation there is very bad. And therefore Indian government has come up with an argument that at least an informed decision has to be taken by Rohingyas. Just tell them that the land in which you are going is ecologically fragile. Then let them decide whether they want to go there or not. But this kind of activity has not been done. So this Cox's Bazar thing became very much in news, and therefore UN Deputy High Commissioner for Refugee has asked Bangladesh that the entire situation she has come into question, and she has also said that solution lies with Myanmar. So it's going to be an internal matter of Myanmar. This is something which India also says. This is something which UN also says. Right? Another important thing what happened is that India abstained on UN General Assembly resolution on Myanmar. I told you, no, after the coup in UN, a resolution was being passed, right? Saying immediate release of Aung San Suu Kyi and other political leaders. At that time also, India abstained. Reason are obvious, because of the twin tack approach India wanted to have. In the same resolution, the Rohingyas issue were also discussed. So India then also abstained or refrained from making any kind of comment on the Rohingya crisis. Right? This was the second context. Third is April 2021, Supreme Court did not order the release of Rohingyas reportedly detained in Jammu. That's what I was saying. The court, however, said that they should not be deported unless proper procedure is followed. Right? So we said until and unless proper procedure is followed, we will not forcefully deport these people there. But of course, we would either not give them asylum, nor we will give them the category of refugee. Anyways, we don't have a refugee policy only. So UN has categorized them as refugee. We don't have a refugee policy. Why would we give them shelter? Okay. So this has been the recent instances why Rohingya issue again came into news. अभी बताते हैं. You know, what are certain fundamental rights which are granted only to citizens? Only to citizens. And what are those which are granted to both citizens as well as foreigners? So 14, 20, 21, these articles are there for everyone, right? So, you know, you have in Indian Constitution, Article 14, Article 20, Article 21, which is being given to everyone, either citizen or foreign nationals, whosoever is there in Indian territory. Other article like 15, like 16, like 19, like 29, like 30, they are just given to citizens. Now the thing is, this means that if Rohingyas are staying in India, right to stay and reside is there under Article 19 of our Constitution. Article 19 of our Constitution. Right to settle in any part of the country. This article is only and only given to citizens. Now understand one thing. Right not to be deported. Right not to be deported is very much linked with right to reside in any part of the country. Article 19(1)(e). ठीक है? Article 19(1)(e) says that you have the right to reside in any part of the country. If I say that you have the right, if I am saying I have the right not to be deported, this means I have the right to stay in this country. Both are concomitant, both are linked. And Article 19(e) is given only to citizens. This means right not to be deported is also restricted to citizens. This means those who are not citizens, India has a right to deport them. And that's what our stand is as far as the refugee thing is concerned. And constitutionally, it is not incorrect as well. So just write one point. In this point, April 2021 context, after that write, the rights guaranteed under Article 14, the rights under Article 14, 20, 21 are available to all persons, are available to all persons, be it the citizen of India or not. But right not to be deported, quote unquote, but right not to be deported is ancillary or linked, ancillary to the right to reside or settle in any part of the country. Any part of the country. Right? Therefore, court has ordered, and now the same thing. Therefore, court has ordered that they should not be deported till proper procedure is not followed. But court has never said that they would not at all be deported. Court is just saying that you have to detain them. So argument ये था कि you have to release them. Supreme Court said that we are not going to release them. They are to be kept into detention. But of course, we are not going to deport them unless proper procedure is being followed. Right? Now, who are Rohingyas? कौन बोल क्या? I didn't get you. कौन सा पेज? केस? एक मणिपुर हाईकोर्ट का केस था, वो मैं आपको आगे बताऊंगी. इसमें नॉन फॉर्मेल्ट का भी एक आर्ग्यूमेंट आता है, यही वाला. उसमें हम आपको केस भी बता देंगे. दैट इज मणिपुर हाईकोर्ट वाला भी एक केस है, लिंक्ड विद दिस ओनली. Who are Rohingyas? So Rohingyas are Muslims basically, and they are in Myanmar's Rakhine state, that is northwestern Myanmar. United Nations have said that Rohingyas are the most persecuted minorities in the world. Most discriminated in the world. In 1982, they were denied even the citizenship. The reason was, don't have to write, just understand, this citizenship law, nationality law which came up in Myanmar says that all those people who had migrated or come to Myanmar before 1823 would be considered as Myanmarese citizen. 1823. But Rohingyas, it was said, they came after 1823. Therefore, on this ground, they were not even given the citizenship. So it was being said that you have come from Bangladesh, you had never been originally in Myanmar, and then too after 1823. Therefore, according to this nationality law, you will not be even considered citizen. Right? So citizenship was being debarred. 2012, for the first time, the crisis came up into light, and basically it was clash between Buddhist and Rohingya Muslims in the Rakhine region. In 2015, thousands of Rohingyas migrated in the nearby areas. Year 2016-17 saw military exploitation also over Rohingyas. Okay. Hmm?
2017 expert
Hmm.
was against those who were left behind.
Hmm. Because many of them, the migration had started from year 2012 only. So the military junta also never wanted these people to stay in Myanmar. They said ki bhai, you are not our citizens, you should go to Bangladesh. Therefore, they are also called stateless citizens. Rohingyas are also called stateless citizens. Yeah, because none of the state is saying that they belongs to us. They didn't want it. No one wants refugees to their place. But the thing is, see, all these countries are under the ASEAN. So the next we'll be dealing with what was the global reaction, right? So these countries' reaction are reflected within ASEAN itself. So what is the global response? United Nations says that Rohingya is a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. They say this is a classic example of ethnic cleansing. Now, as far as China is concerned, China has its own interest as far as country's natural resource is concerned. Exploitation of natural resource. So it is very much concerned with the natural resource of Myanmar. And this is the reason that even China did not oppose. So China also did not oppose. They did not intervene. So China remained silent. As far as the ASEAN response is concerned, there was no coordinated response from ASEAN. No coordinated response. They came up with Asian consensus idea. But here also deep divides were seen. So it was not a very concerted effort or together effort by any Asian countries also. Reason is because Rohingyas are of no strategic use to anyone. So simple fact, if you are of no use, then no country is going to waste single minute on your things. ASEAN had a institutional obligation to come forward with some solution. It came up with ASEAN consensus. But again, there were diverse views that what should be our approach, either with the military setup coming up or with the Rohingyas issue. They had a divided views. There was not that much of unanimity. Neither ASEAN is that important and that important to have, but not very strong organization that it could have a very strong influence. So ASEAN point also could be diluted. Next is Bangladesh, India and Indonesia. So these countries only raised the issue when Rohingyas became economically burdensome then for them. only when they became economic burden to them that Bangladesh also started talking about Rohingyas, India also started talking about Rohingyas, Indonesia also started. From 2012, when there was this ethnic cleansing going on, none of the countries commented. It was only when this refugee issue in their own land became important, economic viability was into question, that they started making comments on Rohingya issue. Okay, so it could be said that, Rohingyas are not strategically important for any country, nor for any organization, right? Tamilians were important for us strategically. There, the Bangladeshi Muslims were important for us strategically. Here, they were not important for anyone. Therefore, none of the countries, none of the organization came out with some very solid solutions. China is very much into the exploitation of natural resources in Myanmar. And China was always involved into conversation with the military junta. China has never blatantly criticized the military rule also. So this was the reason that when Rohingya issue had happened and when there was a systematic attack on them by the military general, then also China didn't wanted to have the animosity with the military general, and therefore they didn't commented on that, right? China did not approve something. Opposed. 2020, what happened? Bangladesh started sending more than 1,500 Rohingya issue refugees to an isolated Bhasan Char island. They started relocating those refugees. This island is in Bay of Bengal, and the project was Ashrayan project. So Bhasan Char is a floating island. However, there are strong concerns on it. Concerns are ecologically fragile area. And this is prone to floods, erosions, and cyclones. In this regard, therefore, UN also said that Rohingyas needs to be, what happened? Oh, given the chance, I thought kab gir gaya. It should be given the chance to take informed decision. Free and informed decision Rohingya should take, because they never know that in the land in which they are going, that is ecologically fragile. So UN came out and said, Haji, who is saying? Because they are saying that they came out after 1823 to our land. And of course, the adjoining country is Bangladesh. Then they are Muslims. So a basic connection with Bangladesh. So the very fact that Rohingyas are of no strategic value to anyone, this is the reason this issue was never taken by anyone till that issue became an economic burden for themselves. None of the country took up the issue. Free and informed decision, I have written. What was India's response? UN said Rohingya should be given the chance for making a free and informed decision whether they really want to go to that island or not for relocation. Rohingyas, or they are weak minorities. But they do have a very strong connections, like they have a Rohingya Independence Army. They do have a very strong connection with many insurgent groups, like Arakan Independence Army and all of Myanmar also. But the point is that they are very, they are not even staying together. So many of them are scattered in different countries. So you can't have a unified Rohingya group staying at one place. But they do now have links with various anti-insurgency factors also, not only in Myanmar but in India as well. Therefore, they are posing a national threat now. How? No, they are not saying. They are saying that Bangladesh should at least give them a choice to tell them that the area in which you are moving is like this. Now, do you really wish to go or not? That is what UN say. That at least give an informed decision. Let them take an informed decision. Here's the last point and then we'll conclude. ASEAN point. See, ASEAN has not been very consensus as far as Rohingya issue is concerned. There is an ASEAN consensus which has come up in order to solve the problems in Myanmar, right? So according to this ASEAN provinces, you need to be very much, every party has to come up with some amount of inputs. But all the other ASEAN groups, be it Indonesia, Thailand, they have their own interest and they really don't want to put that much of energy into Rohingya crisis. Therefore, ASEAN is not coming up with a very consolidated response against this. So no consolidated solution is there with ASEAN also. Last point. What is India's response? So number one, India has said that Rohingya is an internal issue of Myanmar. We are not going to interfere. That is India's stand. Second is that India feels Rohingyas now are a threat to national security since they have links with insurgent groups.
Any country which is against Myanmar can use Rohingya. They do have a strategic plan.
See, no country wants to invest in group of people who themselves are very much dispossessed. More so, as I said, they are not together at one place. They are scattered. But no doubt, some portions of, some people around this Rohingyas, like the Rohingyas Independence Army and all, are of course being funded, right? They are of course being funded, but in totality, they are not very important, right? They are very scattered also. So you can't have a unified Rohingya front at one place. So of course, this is a threat to national security. Third, 2017, India also outlined a formal plan to deport these Rohingyas. So, I'll come to after the class. So 40,000 Rohingyas, India said we are planning to deport them. And then India said that we are not putting any kind of pressure on Myanmar. We are not asking Myanmar to give them the recognition of citizens. We are not putting any pressure. Reason because India think it is going to be an internal matter. That is why India is saying that till proper procedure is not applied or it is not being followed, we will detain these people. We will not release them. Right? Refugees are never detained. If you recognize, asylum seekers are never detained. But these Rohingyas are being detained in Indian jails. And India has said that we will deport them, but we will not deport them till we don't get a recognition that other country is considering or recognizing them as their citizen. Okay? So this has been the stand of India as far as Myanmar is concerned, Rohingya issue. Now, why do you think that India wants to keep away from this issue? Number one, of course, this is an internal affair. That too India has recognized. Second is, of course, an Asian factor. India feels that ASEAN is the only authority or should be an institutionalized authority for resolving this kind of conflict. So India says that ASEAN has undeniable responsibility. Undeniable responsibility. You can't deny from this responsibility, and therefore we are not adopting a very proactive approach. Another is avoiding conflict of interests. India doesn't want to have a conflict of interest with the Myanmarese government, at present the military junta. So with the new regime, we doesn't want conflict of interest. प्रॉक्सी यूज कर लें इंडिया इस पे भी हम आएंगे अभी तो इशारे हो रहे हैं ओवर करने को लास्ट पॉइंट लिखो चलो एंड द लास्ट पॉइंट इज दैट India has a key role in Look East policy. Sorry, Myanmar has a very strong role in Look East or in Act East policy now. And therefore, for our own Act East policy, we don't want to have any confrontation with Myanmar, at least on issue like Rohingya. So definitely we don't want. That is why we are keeping ourselves away from Rohingya issue. Right? After that comes up the entire thing regarding India's refugee policy. That we'll deal in the next class. We will start off with Indo-Bhutan also that time.